and over. And, I mean, there's still a possibility for it.
It looks like it might just be a traditional Inner Fire and Divine Spirit combo priest, because you don't need Inner Fire for the test subject combo, because you just use Topsy-Turvy to flip your high health minions into attack.
And that's one deck that surprisingly has been going pretty strong, is just with the inclusion of things like Topsy-Turvy. It gives you just more ways to, you know, kind of flip that make it a little bit easier. You see, I think I was talking to Ant. One of Ant's favorite decks is Odd Paladin.
Yeah, I think Odd Paladin gets a pretty bad rap because I think most people who lose to it get steamrolled by just like its incredible efficiency by hero powering a lot. But part of what makes Odd Paladin a very interesting deck from my perspective is how dynamic it can be. Yes, it's considered to be generally an aggro or a fast deck, but it also can play slow control or even fatigue. Like, I've seen Odd Paladins that go all the way to literally the 30th card against some of these slower decks and be able to go toe-to-toe because they hero power and maximize their efficiency, don't swing unless they need to, get every single ounce of value. And so it's a very fluid deck, which we don't see too often. I feel like a lot of decks these days are so good at one thing that they, if you beat them at that one thing, then you win. But you know, for example, like, you know, Taunt Druid is really good at like the Hadronox thing. But if you take Hadronox away, they lose oftentimes, right? Because they can't summon back a big board. Or if they play Shudderwalk Shaman, you kill the Shudderwalk through like a Death Grip or you mill them, they can't really win as easily. Odd Paladin feels like it's so fluid and dynamic that even if you like clear its board 5 times in a game, it could still win. Compared to other aggro decks like Odd Rogue, you do the same thing. They can't.
It's also very skill intensive in the early games, understanding coin management and then also understanding when you kind of want to fit your hero powers in. It's very difficult to do that. When I first started playing the deck and I wasn't as experienced with it, I just kept losing these matchups where I was like, I should be winning this. Like, why am I not winning this?
Right.
And I would sit in calls with players and they would tell me, you know, you're doing this wrong, you should be doing this, you should make sure to fit in the hero power every turn, maybe use the coin earlier on. And then once I started realizing how powerful the deck was, it just kind of showed me how skill intensive, especially in the early games, that this deck can be.
Exactly. I think Odd Paladin really punishes you for having bad foundation. If you utilize your early mana crystals improperly, like say you're not coining out 2 1-mana minions because you're getting greedy with it, or say you overextend and you're playing this here, guess what? You might like lose right there, like because you stopped your momentum. And look at this interesting play from Ant, coining out the Void Ripper early on to stop the Motion Cleric. I was kind of anticipating maybe Champion's Maul, perhaps, because it sets up a weapon, but instead he favors having this early 3/3 to answer anything on the board. And then Shaxy has an unpowered Mauler, which is only attack if you cast a spell this turn, and it seems to be in theme of what we call a Miracle Priest. With Lyra, a bunch of cheap spells, and Radiant Elemental, you essentially can create your own win conditions at the mercy of the glory of the sun. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this game ends up panning out, particularly because, you know, I don't know too much about Shaxy outside that he's a really good player that gets a lot of points and high ladder finishes.
It's been impressive to see. And just going back to that like simple play of Void Ripper versus Champion's Maul, right? You sit there and you think both of them do a very similar thing.
Right.
But Ant went for the Void Ripper because a lot of times you want to have that minion on the board so it's a little bit stronger into a Wild Pyromancer, because if your opponent went coin Wild Pyromancer, or went, I'm sorry, Wild Pyromancer Power Word Shield, it would have cleared off the 1/1s and you would have had essentially no way to answer that Pyromancer. Whereas if you couldn't the Void Ripper, they can't go for that play. Maybe their play's a little bit more awkward, and they can't really tempo out that Pyromancer the way they would want to.
Yeah, there's a lot of choices. Like, do we even want to play the Pyromancer in this spot? My opponent already used a coin, and Odd Paladin's weakest turn is turn 4 because they either play a couple of 1-mana minions and hero power, or they play a 3-mana minion, which, you know, there's not a lot of good 3-mana minions in Odd Paladin, to be quite honest.
Yes.
It's just, you know, it's like there's like Raid
really
Leader
awkward.
And like Stonehill Defender at best, you know? So, you know, exactly. Shaxy holds on. He says, I'd rather just have an additional card to see if I can combo, or, you know, maybe even kill off this 3-1. And Ant has another opportunity to flip. You know, Void Ripper ends up being one of the better 3-mana cards for Odd Paladin. Largely because for 3 mana, you still even just rather hero power a lot with this deck.
You really, hero powering, as many turns as possible is one of the best ways to play this deck. Even if you think playing, say, a 3-mana card and a 1-mana card seems good, you really want to utilize that hero power as much as possible. I mean, that's the whole goal of the deck, right? You built this deck for that hero power, so why not utilize it as much as possible? The one thing Ant's going to be careful, though, is we did see some unpowered Steam bots, I believe, unpowered Steam Engine.
Yes, I think it's Steam bot.
I believe it's Steam bot as well. And you're really going to need Void Ripper against that card, because that card can just be one of the biggest pains to get through, especially when you have to soak so much damage into it, whereas one 3-mana card can answer it.
Until they slap an Inner Fire on it, and you're like, well, Void Ripper doesn't actually do anything here.
Void Ripper just kind of cries when he looks at it.
Ooh, Wild Pyromancer with the Northshire Cleric and Circle of Healing. And a Radiant Elemental into the fold. Oh, boy.
This is a pretty strong turn.
Oh, boy. 3 cards and killing off at least 4 minions from your opponent and sitting back.
He just, that just grunt on his face just showed that he knew what was coming.
Yeah, there's a lot. Well, actually, it's 5 cards, excuse me, because 2 minions survive. There's that Topsy-Turvy.
Ooh, another Powered Shield pickup.
Yeah. And,
another Circle of Healing.
That might be too much.
That might be a little bit too much.
Yeah. Well, we can at least Powered Shield. It does weaken your own board, though, which is a little bit awkward. You can even Topsy-Turvy first, too, to destroy the minions, so you draw 1 less card. In fact, you can do it to boot. You flip the Corridor Creeper and then Powered Shield.
Yes.
And then you draw only 3 cards. Shaxy needs to do this a little bit quickly.
Yeah, because you can't fit in the Circle of Healing to draw those maximum cards. This was a very powerful turn.
Right, yeah.
It's great recognition from Shaxy's part.
You want to draw only 2 cards. You don't want to fill your hand too much. Radiant Elemental already done its job. Although you do want to keep it alive for the Lyra. Yeah, 1 Radiant Elemental is still good enough.
I think Shaxy's kind of happy with sticking this Wild Pyromancer, especially with Ant not having a single answer. Yeah. And that's what we were going to earlier. You stick a Wild Pyromancer, and Odd Paladin just kind of sits there and tries to figure out some line of play, but then realizes there's not many lines of play.
Yeah, the way that the health was distributed too was perfectly controlled to just be outside the range of champions' all attack. And now, what do you do with the Odd Paladin? Like, again, you don't even need your main win condition if you're the control deck against Odd Paladin. You can just simply dominate the board. Void Lords won the game for the Taiwan last game. And now, Wild Pyromancer chooses to be a threat. You don't even need your Mecha'thuns or your Lyras to close, or the Inner Fires to close out the game.
Yeah, it's looking really rough for Ant here. You see, he just has to commit the Void Ripper just to clear off that Northshire Cleric to get something on the board. This Pyromancer, as long as there's any spell, and we can see Shaxy has spells, Ant's just going to be hoping, you know, maybe there's a slim hope there's just not spells in the hand. Or that, you know, Shaxy goes for another line of play where it doesn't commit one of the spells. We can see there, I mean, not really too many other strong plays besides just going ahead and maybe Shadow Visions for something. There's also this taunt. I believe this is the Bronze Gatekeeper. Really unique card. I really like the magnetic effect because it gives versatility in play. It allows you to decide whether you want to play something as a standalone minion or you want to use it as that buff spell that can just, you know, either put more damage onto a charge minion, like for instance with War Gear, the 5-mana 5/5 with magnetic. A lot of times when I was playing a Zoo list, I would just stick a mech, I would give it 2 War Gears, and that would be lethal damage.
Yeah, War Gear is really powerful to push the issue, and then you saw, like, you know, things like upgradable frame bots or Mecharoo, and you get these 2/6, 2/10 taunts out very early. Just completely forces the aggro to crumble early on. They have to trade it. So it's a very versatile card. Speaking of which, you know, he has good options this turn right now with Mass Dispel to shut down.
That's so strong here.
It's looking like lights out unless Ant has a Divine Favor coming up soon, because, you know, his one hope for a comeback is that Shaxy maybe draws too many cards and refills the opponent's hand, and then Ant can go toe-to-toe for resources. But he's also used both of his Void Rippers like you're talking about, so if Shaxy sticks a big high health minion, I don't really know how Ant can get through it if he just Divine Spirits a single minion.
He really can. I mean, another question is, could he even afford the room for the Divine Favor? That's just another question, is he has to fit a lot of these, like, newer cards. Could he afford to put the Divine Favor in this list, or did he say, you know what, it's not needed, we can just go ahead and tempo out and win this game through that method.
If you anticipate a lot of slower decks, then yes, Divine Favor is fantastic. But if you anticipate faster decks where your opponent also is playing minions very quickly from their hand and they don't have many resources, Divine Favor is very weak. So it's completely a metagame call. Oh, no.
That is not what Ant wanted to see.
Oh, this is looking like with each turn passing that the Asian countries and teams are going to be dominating the Western ones. You know, the East meets West. Europe and America are looking like they're going to fall in the first 2 series here, Dr. J.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate sight for all the proud Americans out there. But, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, maybe it's just the fault of Odd Paladin, right? Odd Paladin, you know.
They chose to play this again.
Exactly.
They could have played another deck, and I bet.
Especially knowing Priest was the last deck, or was one of the last decks.
Yeah, I mean, they had the opportunity to play Mage as well. So, you know, it's interesting that, you know, Taiwan chose to reveal the Priest. I know Team America, when they have people like Trump on it, he always thinks about advantages and edges that you can get outside the game. So in Trump's mind, he probably thought something like, oh, we don't have to reveal a deck. Odd Paladin's just a very solid deck overall. And if he's playing a combo Priest deck like Megathune, we can just pressure him out of the game. So we should play Odd Paladin, keep our 3rd deck revealed, because we want to play the long game over the course of the group stages. Did that work out, though?
Say. No, it did not work out this time around.
Though? Oh, boy. If Ant can win from this position, he's the best Hearthstone player in the world.
You know what? I've still got faith in Ant. It's very slim, but I still have faith in my brethren. Don't you worry.
Is he just dead next turn because of 2nd War Gear?
I'm pretty sure he's just dead next turn. That's a lot of damage from the other side. Could even find the Inner Fire if need to be.
Yeah, there's 13 plus the War Gear or just Divine Spirit's Inner Fire. Shaxy sitting forward. And he knows what time it is.
Oh, you know what's crazy? I completely forgot. Unpowered Steambot's a mech that can work with the synergies of the magnetic.
Exactly.
It's very intuitive deck building for Shaxy out there.
Perhaps this is the kind of mid-range Priest deck that a lot of people are talking about. Sure, it has combo finishers, but you also just have good mechs to just combine with each other for big tempo swings.
Can you just imagine putting a War Gear onto an unpowered Steambot?
Yeah,
on curve?
514.
That's insane. That's insane.